Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with addiction specialist Conrad Tracey. Conrad is the founder of the Addiction Coaching School and is a coach, consultant, and mentor for hundreds of high potential people from all over the world who are looking to break the cycle of addiction and regain control of their lives and choices. In this week's episode, expect to learn the pros and the cons of the 12-step program, lying, addictions, feeling powerless, personal inventory, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Now, guys, before we start this week's episode of the podcast, I want to talk to you about the Life by Design Mastermind. The Life by Design Mastermind is the mastermind for go-getters and high achievers who are looking to create a more successful, fulfilling, and balanced life by design. If you're serious about transforming your life, achieving your goals, and living a life on your terms, then the Life by Design is your golden ticket. Head over to the show notes and click on the link for more details about the program. Conrad Tracey, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, mate. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this chat all week.
My fellow masterminder, James Kemp. For those listening, that's how the two of us first met, which is awesome, and a lot for us to talk about and a lot of interest in both your history and the work that you do as well, in particular around addictions. So for those that haven't heard of you or your work, can you give the guys a 60 to 90 second spiel of who you are and what's got you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Conrad Tracey. I'm the founder of Addiction Coaching Australia, and I developed the company and the programs after my own lived experience with addiction. So I went through addiction the traditional way, and it was really hard. It was laborious. It was very, very old-fashioned. And I did it because I had no other choice. When I got to the end of it, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. So I kind of set about designing it. And now we run group coaching and high-end one-on-one private coaching for people who are trying to break the cycle of addiction. Typically, we work with people who know what it feels like to be successful, motivated, driven, self-starting, but have just taken a divergence off that path, okay? So they are people with careers, big jobs, big responsibilities, poor coping mechanisms, and also we get a lot of kind of intergenerational trauma, family stuff, relational stuff. So it's beautiful work, and I'm really, really glad that it has kind of, resonated with people. And we're helping people all over Australia and the world at the moment. So very, very lucky.
You mentioned that you followed a traditional path and you found challenges with that. What traditional path did you follow, and what are the challenges that you found with that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's really, really good. And thank you, because obviously when you're talking about the thing that you know about, you assume that everybody knows about it. So this is the journey, okay? Just say you've started smashing the bags, and you're just doing it all week and every day, or you might have gone into methamphetamines or alcohol and you realize it's an issue, or your wife or partner realizes that it's an issue. First thing they're going to do is they're going to jump on the internet and go rehab, or how do I quit drugs, right? And in Australia, you can either go to a private rehab, and they are exorbitantly expensive. Okay, so you're looking at anywhere between $20,000 to $100,000 a month to go to a private rehab. It's out of reach for a lot of people. The other very, very popular alternative is for you to go to 12-step. Okay, so what we know is Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or Gamblers Anonymous. And the thing that I couldn't get my head around is that you actually, if you go to a private rehab, so let's say you fork out $10,000, $20,000 for the month, and you land in one of these places, a big majority of them are teaching 12-step as their curriculum, right? So you fork out a huge amount of money, you go there and they're talking to you about God, right? So there's ideologies, they're teaching you systems and ideas that were developed in the 1950s by, white men, and nothing against white men, but we all know, where that goes. And unfortunately, there is a very, very murky, past and story with a lot of the founders, or one in particular. And then they ship you out of the rehab and go, your aftercare program or your recovery program is to go to Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. I just thought that was a scam. Like I paid $10,000 in 2017 for 30 days of rehab in one of the, nicer suburbs of Melbourne. And mate, I was in there and it was like a complete hodgepodge. People from, there was like a CEO in one corner and a guy that had just got out of jail in the other. And then there was a person who was trying to teach that group, trying to pitch the information down the middle. Everybody was bored. It was like Melrose Place in there, very, very drama fueled. And then I left there and they're like, go to 12-step. And you have to do 90 meetings in 90 days. I did 110 because I'm that kind of guy. I'm a bit motivated. And then I did that for 3 years, meetings every single day. And mate, the only reason I did it is because I was petrified, right? I had, effed up my life so badly that the thought of not doing what I was told or not doing the solution scared me. But I was lucky because I still had my wits about me. I could still hear things and go, you know what? Like he's saying it and everyone's applauding, but I don't really agree with that. That doesn't really resonate with me. So I managed to keep myself safe from all of the BS. And then I got to the end of it. I got happy and healthy. I got my life back on track, but I felt very isolated, right? And I didn't have any friends from that program because I just didn't meet anyone there that was on the same journey as I was. I was about like growth, and I mean, people were about growth, but I'm a pretty motivated guy. I wanted to live a life by design and have great success. And a lot of the people there were just happy to be employed or happy to be unemployed, which was even crazier, giving their life up to God and doing all of these crazy things. So I guess in a nutshell, it's very long-winded. It took a long time and there was so much to navigate. Like those rooms can be very, very arduous in terms of behavior. There's a lot of predatory stuff going on there. There's a lot of codependence. There's a lot of people who are kind of, failed narcissists who have found a place to land and are very good at being the loudest in the room, building followings. It's very unhealthy. And I felt like I'd wasted time. So when I decided to do something different, I was like, I reckon I can get people results in about, 12 to 18 months, not 4 years. And I reckon I can keep them connected. I reckon I can keep them motivated. I reckon I can build a community of high-performing people. And I reckon I can teach them stuff that is a little bit more, current and modern in terms of its focus. So, yeah.
I'm fascinated by this. I come from a family of addicts as well, and I find it fascinating the different schools of thought around addiction. I'd be really interested to know in your eyes, I can't remember the 12 steps off the top of my head, but I'd be really interested to know in your eyes, with your program and your insights now, which of the 12 steps would you keep based on your program or based on your school of thought around addiction? And which of the 12 steps do you see as not essential or, overrated or not a big part of the plan when it comes to someone's recovery around addiction?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Can I start with the ones that I wouldn't keep?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this. Please.
Yeah, and these are the ones that I detest, and that's a strong word. Okay, so defects of character, I can't stand, right? So like putting someone into a program, their self-efficacy is done, their confidence is done, they're sitting in guilt and shame. And one of the first things they do is tell you that you've got defects of character. Okay, you're an egotist, you're dishonest, you're a liar, you're lazy, or whatever the defects are. And defect to me means broken. It means it came out of the factory that way and it's not repairable. I don't believe in that. I believe in optimal and suboptimal behavior. I believe that we are capable of terrible things, and I believe that we are capable of very, very good things. So defects of character, I don't love. The idea of giving your life up to God, I'm a deeply spiritual person, and I have the utmost respect and faith for everybody's faith. But in the modern world, in 2023, 2024, sitting on your ass, right, and waiting for God or waiting for Buddha or Allah or whoever it is to serve things up to you, it doesn't work. Okay. You have to connect to your own faith. You have to connect to your own spirituality and mindfulness. And then you've got to get moving, right? You've got to do things. And that was one of my pet peeves. So that one, defects of character, and also the concept, right, of, I guess, what's the word that they use? It's been so long since I've been there. It's the concept of, I can't remember this. It's been such a long time, right? But basically what it says is that it's powerlessness. That's it. Sorry, it took me a couple of minutes. Feel free to edit that out.
No.
I'm not powerless. I'm really powerful. You're really powerful. We can get to points in our life where we don't feel like we have any power. And the concept of being powerless in terms of your addiction or against your addiction, it doesn't seem right to me. So basically they're saying you can't do anything about it. So you're powerless to fight it. And the only way to fight it is to give up your strength and your will to God. And that is the solution. Okay. It's not the solution. It might be in some deep spiritual realm, or it might be for, one person who reaches enlightenment. But I think the solution is like knowing how to stop, knowing what your triggers are, knowing how to beat cravings and urges, knowing how to build boundaries, right? Knowing how to build a life that is worth living concurrently, and doing it in a community that is happy and supported. Okay. Things I love about 12-step. I love community. Okay. And I'm not here to judge anyone. So that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It just provides this incredible place for everybody and anybody to access and go to. And I love that. I love the concept of making amends, right? It's a beautiful thing. And we have, I guess, borrowed that, and we call it mending fences. And that is very, very powerful. I love the concept of personal inventory. Okay. That is genius. Okay. It's one part of that program that is so important, because if you can't look at yourself and realize that your behavior is, needs some work and needs some reflection, and you need to kind of, upgrade the operating system, you'll never create long-term behavioral change. If you can't admit it, if you can't see it, you can't fix it. That's beautiful. And the thing that I also love is, developing a spiritual connection. And I just kind of wish they put that at the front, because my God, my higher power, my, larger than or greater than is mine, and it can't be anyone else's. And when you're in a place that says it is, that's an organization, that's a church, that's an ideology. Okay. And that's where a lot of things start to go a bit pear-shaped.
What are your thoughts on one thing I found fascinating? I actually went to an AA meeting because friends and family and partner, etc., can go. What are your thoughts on identifying for the rest of your life as an addict? Even if, I know they come, someone might be clean for 25 years and I think their first words are, "Hey, I'm Nathan and I'm an addict." Yeah. What's your school of thought on that? I find that a fascinating element to their program, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's such another great question. Thank you. It's so nice. I've been to so many podcasts, and like, these are the best questions I've had. I like it because it gets people to understand that they're in a lot of shit, right? Like, if you cannot admit to the fact that you've got a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction or a dependency, you're in a lot of trouble. But I don't identify as a drug addict. And it's another thing I really struggled with, right? I know who I am, and I know what I've been through, and I know I didn't cope with it very well. Okay. And also the science doesn't back it either, right? They're like, oh, it's intergenerational, it's down your bloodline. It's not. If your father or mother is a drug addict or an alcoholic or a gambler, that is not going to, it gives you a strong predisposition. It is not a genetic predisposition. Okay. So I don't identify as an addict. I don't feel like there's any power in it. I don't feel like there's any confidence in it. And I feel like it's a ceiling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. So I was interested in your thoughts. I can see the pros and the cons. I do wonder, on a deep identity level, if you continue to identify with it, whether that works against you at some stage. But to your point of staying honest about either where you've been or where you're at as well. Yeah, I find it fascinating. I remember that just like distinctly in the meeting I went. He'd been sober, I think, for 25 years or something like that. And he referred to himself as an addict. So yeah, it's interesting, obviously, in your opinion and your school of thought, and this being your area of expertise, how you connect with it?
Well, mate, like we talk about, like the last unit of our curriculum is called Discover Who You Are and What You Really Want, which is completely connected to what you are doing. And I don't think that you can get to that point in life with emotional baggage. You've got to let go of stuff. Okay. You've got to let go of hangups. You've got to let go of your beliefs and your systems and the values that don't serve you. Okay. So I might look at a person and go, they're this, right? And if I'm looking at myself and going, I'm this, it's like tar. That's what that's exactly how it felt to me. It felt like I'd been tarred and feathered, you know? And I was walking down the street and everyone's like, he's a drug addict. I'm like, I'm not a drug addict. I'm just like, I'm in pain, you know? And once I learned to deal with that pain, I let go of the drugs. And I know today that if I am in deep emotional turmoil, it is still a coping mechanism that will pop up. Okay. It's still an option, but that's all it is. And it doesn't last long. Okay. Because I've built an amazing life that I'm just like, there's no way I'm going back there. Okay. I'm still trying to figure out who I am. I don't label myself. I don't put myself in boxes. And the minute you do that, you are limiting your potential. I mean, you and I both know like the journey that we've been on in the last kind of 6 to 12 months or even longer than that. It's just like, we don't get to where we are in life by labeling and devaluing and making ourselves one of many. I've got zero interest in that. I want to be Conrad, you know, and I want everyone that I work with to be an individual.
What are you, speaking from your own experience and maybe professionally as well, how is that desire for you now? I remember, must have been 15, 20 years ago now, reading Ben Cousins, and he spoke about having to micromanage his half hours. And I was like, fuck me up. That is exhausting, having to manage yourself on that level. From your own experience, what does that look like as you go into the world each and every day, you know, say, what is it, 7 or 8 years ago and now? Like, were you at that stage where you're micromanaging the half hours? You know, how does that feel now? Does it come up daily, weekly, monthly? Like what's the evolution look like for you?
Yep. Really good question. So we talk about like a relapse soup, in our program, which is like, you know, creating time, having no accountability, no responsibilities, having, I guess, you know, being in a state of boredom. When you feel like you can get away with it, you will think about it. Okay. And what he says is so true. And it's so true to what I see. And I can tell you from a personal perspective that I have routined myself well and happy, right? And I have spiritually connected to get myself into happiness, but I am useless without my routine. I have to know when I'm doing, what I'm doing it, who I'm doing it with. And I can absolutely say that we work with our clients or our participants to develop that sense of time accountability. Because as soon as you have that gap, you will find the time and space. Does that make sense?
100%. So on that I find that fascinating. So if we talk about accountability, responsibility, and even boredom, I'm really interested to know what your approach to relapse looks like, because I can only imagine telling off an adult for fucking up is potentially going to create disconnection, maybe lead them into a deeper sense of shame, you know, and they're fully grown adults. You know, are you treating them like a little boy and telling them off as if you're the teacher? Like how does that accountability, responsibility look like from like your side of things in terms of holding them accountable?
Yeah. So what we try and do, and this is sometimes the first time people have experienced this in their life, is we, at the top of everything, try to create an environment where people can be honest and practice their truth muscle, right? Or their honesty muscle. And we are not a total abstinence program. We are not, you get to day 5 and then you fall over and you go back to 0, because that doesn't work with modern men or women either. So we talk about high lows. Okay. So, you know, like futures model. You can stay on the same path, you can head to crisis, or you can head towards success. The day that you start a program like this and the day that you invest the time and the money, which creates accountability in the modern world, you're on that top line. And if you have a little dip on that top line, we will be there to pick you up and put you back into trajectory the next day. Okay. So we don't scold, we don't berate, we don't give people shit, you know, we just listen to them and let them talk to us and provide them with an environment where they feel safe, they can be honest, and they can be vulnerable, right? Now, having said that, we work with a select group of people. And one of the things that is really big for me is that I get a sense for people and their capacity to be honest. Because you can come in and lie the whole way through. We don't drug test people. And so when people get to us, they're ready. They understand the cost of inaction. They understand that they need to take it seriously. And again, we just try and create an environment where they can tell us what has occurred and get back up on the horse and keep on going. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. And that's the school of thought that I thought would make sense from an accountability and responsibility point of view.
Yeah.
So when it comes to building someone's timetable, keeping them busy, are you literally helping manage them minute by minute? Like, what does that look like for the average person? And does it depend on, the level of addiction? Like, how do you go managing someone's diary, so to speak?
Yeah. So again, we understand who we can help and who we can't help. And the way that we engage with that is level of use, frequency of use, type of drug use, and method of use. Okay. So we know what we can get a result with, and we know when to send people into long-term psychiatric care or long-term rehab. And what we do every day is we have accountability. So I think there's about 25 of us at the moment. We're all in a Slack channel or a text channel. And every participant at the start of every day has got to do what we call a play. It's their plan for the day in order, something that they learned from the day before, something awesome or a gratitude, and then a self-reporting score out of 5. Now, we read those, and if we see like huge gaps in their day, or we see it's a Friday and they're going to their mate's 40th, right, or 50th, we see that. And we might see that their U score is not a 4, it's a 2.8. And the alarm bells go off and we touch base, right? Mate, I saw that you're a 2.8. It's a little bit lower than your self-reflection scores from the previous week. You've got this big gap in your day. You're not tracking you have been, and you've got a 40th. So, what's the plan? Do you need to go? Is it important? Have you put something in on the Saturday morning to make sure that you're accountable and you show up to it? Okay. So again, the onus is on them to provide the information. And again, they're high performing, so they know how to do that stuff. It's our responsibility to look at it and identify the twigs. So we talk about not letting people trip over a twig. And that happens so much, right? It's just like, we had one guy in Sydney, he had 2 exits from his office, okay? And the twig was the wrong exit. So if he went out onto, I won't say it's like in central Sydney, but if he went out to one street, he'd have to walk past 3 bottle shops on the way to his home. And if he went out the other exit, he was through a park, breathing in fresh air and, home safe. So we knew that. And that's like a little piece of information that we gather, and we make sure that we're checking in with people, that, 6 o'clock, hey mate, make sure you go out the back entrance today, and that might sound like a lot of personalized care, and it kind of is. Like we are, we're dialed into all of our participants' lives, and I have an amazing team. I'm really lucky.
Is the goal to being off the personalized care to, I guess, put eventually with time and healing to put the power back in their hands? Like, is that the goal?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we talk about, like, when we meet people, when you take your kids bowling, right, and you put the bumper lanes in, we explain ourselves to people like we're the bumper lanes.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, awesome.
You throw the ball down, and you're gonna hit the edges, but you're gonna knock down some pins. Okay, and if we're not there, there's a fair chance that you're gonna end up in the gutter. Now we've got a 4-week program and an 8-week program, and 96 or 7%, and they're real numbers, of the people that do those programs then come into our extension for 6 to 12 months. Okay. And what we do is we work intensely with people for 4 to 8 weeks, and we are super mindful of not creating codependency. So we're not here to chat about your day or you be, your girlfriend or your boyfriend. We're here to coach and help. And then at the end of that period, your things start to dial back. Okay. So when you go into the extension program, the cadence of coaching goes from weekly to fortnightly. You might take out your daily phone check-ins and just do your play. you still come to group. So the idea at that point, and the analogy that we use, is that you're taking off the training wheels, but we're still kind of running beside you, and we'll catch you if you're going to fall over. And mate, like, it really works. I'll be honest with you, when I started, there was no aftercare program, and it was devastating, right? I'd have guys come in and make big investments, do the Delta Path, the 8-week program. And on, day 61, they were like having a hard time, or really having a hard time. And I was just like, this doesn't work. So, I'm not perfect, but I fixed it, and I iterated it, and I made a solution, and the solution is really good. We've got people in our community that have been there over 18 months. They come to our retreats, they drop into a meeting occasionally, they come and share their story with the people who've just started. And I mean, some of the success stories are crazy, like, from like complete meth benders to like Series A funding in startups. And, it's crazy the things I've seen people do. Meth to marathons is another one. I've got a guy running fucking ultra marathons now. It's nuts. It's really good.
For people that have a partner, friend, family, etc., who are struggling with addiction, what is your kind of number one, I guess, lesson for them? And this is where I find a massive, personally, knowing I feel like a healthy amount about addictions, there's a real disconnect here in terms of how they're supported unintentionally, but how they're supported when it comes to addiction. But what's your number one, I guess, tool or thought around supporting an addict?
My number one suggestion is to do your own work. Okay. What I recommend, and I highly recommend this, we have a lot of people who are introduced to me by their wife, their partner, their friend, their cousin, I love that. And then what we do is we work with the individual. We will never create a triangle of communication. It is the most unhealthy thing known to human existence, I think, right? So I have partners and wives texting me all day, and I will not reply to them, okay? Because that's the promise and that's the boundary. But we have partners, okay? And we have some amazing partners that focus specifically on supporting friends and family of people with addictions. Okay. So just like I've gone through NA and AA and built a different solution, there's people that have done that and built a different solution to like Al-Anon, which would be the traditional approach. What I can say also, which is a little bit of a prickly one, is that sometimes the wife or the partner will place all of the blame on the person with the addiction. And the person with the addiction will get rid of the addiction, they'll level up, and they'll come back into the marriage or the partnership or the relationship, and the wife or the partner hasn't done any work. Okay, so they're the same person, they've got the same resentments, they've got the same trust issues, they've got the same lack of faith, and it goes terribly wrong. So I reckon the best thing to do is for the person with the addiction to work on that, and then the person who is supporting it to get the highest level of care for themselves recent, and then for the two people to reconvene, right? And then do the work they need to do on communication, rebuilding trust, building cadence, for time in their relationships. And I do a little bit of that stuff, but I'm not a relationship expert by any means. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, 100% it does. I find it a really interesting piece, obviously experiencing it firsthand, a lot of it, people's relationship to lying. And, when I think about my own lies at different stages, when I think about people in my world who lie about their struggles, for many people, they struggle to see beyond the lie and understand the shame, the guilt, the fear, the judgment that one's placing on that situation, and make it personal or make something of lying. So my whole belief around lying has changed a lot. Not that I encourage lying by any means, but I have found a way to see beyond the lying and think about the role that I can play in creating the safest possible space for that person so that they don't necessarily feel like they have to lie. Is that something that you find contending with a lot?
That is so good. And like, if every psychologist and psychiatrist and counselor in the world took your approach, it would be a better world. Okay. The thing that, like, mate, I'll say this, I used to lie through my teeth. I lied so much that I didn't know I was lying. And one of the things that I got taught was that integrity was the sum of small honesties. Okay. So if I had to get up to integrity, I had to be honest with everything, even, internal dialogue, no bullshitting, no half truths, no withholding information, no exaggerating. Okay. And making sure that I was putting my hand up when I was dishonest. Now, from a partner's perspective, they see a person that they love or that they've married or they've entered into agreement with or partnership with, and they see them breaking trust. They see them lying. They see them looking them in the eyes and lying repeatedly and over and over and over again. And what they see is the person that they love lying to them. And I can tell you this, if I picked up a pipe and smoked some methamphetamine or smoked some ice, it's, 1:42 in Melbourne, by 2 p.m., I would be doing the most deplorable things, okay? And that has nothing to do with Conrad. It has nothing to do with my heart, my beliefs, my systems, my values. It is the drug, okay? And I can't tell you, there's something about ice that makes it shockingly, it's like it creates a complete alter ego for the person. Cocaine, not as much, and alcohol probably not as much, but ice is unbelievable. And it's really hard to get people to see that. And the only way I know how is to explain it to them like that you have to understand that it is not a justification. I'm not creating an excuse for lies, but you have to understand that judgment is very, very impaired, okay? They might have got pissed once in their life and they might have had a line or two of coke, but they've never been in crippling addiction, okay? And they've never done, they've never traveled to those depths, so they don't know what it feels like. And then I try to work with the person with the addiction to put some runs on the board, okay? And that's why the 12 to the 18-month timeline is like, you've got to show up, you've got to put your tail between your legs, and you've got to do what is required so your wife, partner, friend, loved ones actually see evidence. Evidence is the key, all right? They want to love you again. They want to trust you again. They don't want you to leave. They don't want to raise the kids by themselves, okay? But you've got to show up and you've got to do it with consistency. Trust takes a long time to rebuild, man. I'm in the same relationship I was when I was in rehab. And mate, it's taken us years, but it's amazing now,
One marble back in the trust jar, bit by bit.
Dude.
Yeah.
Right. You know that adage, like you got to hit singles every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so true for work and life and relationships. And you've got to put your hand up when you make a mistake.
I found this fascinating, mate, and so appreciative of you coming on and sharing a little bit about your story, and obviously giving really valuable insight into the world of addicts and addiction. And, whether it's an addict who's struggling, who, whether they can't make sense of what's going on or they don't have the support around them, or it's the people in their world that want to find a way to support them in some way.
Yeah.
You've given an amazing amount of insights that will help, people on both sides of the fence as well. Mate, for those that want to find out more about you, the work that you do, where's the best spot to send them?
Yeah, totally. So I'm really active on my social media and I'm really accessible, to an extent there. So at Conrad M. Tracey Addiction Coach on Instagram, or conradtracey.com, or the Addiction Coach on Spotify if you want to have a listen to some of the teaching and learnings I've put up. So I would love to hear from people through there. If you've got a question, if you've got a criticism, feel free to get in touch. And I think, one thing I want to say as a caveat to everything that we've discussed is that I am not an elitist, right? I am providing a solution that is different from what is available. And a lot of people really like it and a lot of people don't, mate. Like, I get an incredible amount of flack from people. And what I want to say is that if you've listened to this and you're not in a position to hire a bespoke private addiction coach and you have to go to NA, or you have to go to Smart Recovery, or you have to go to church, or there is nothing wrong with that. I'm not here to lean into other things and shit can things. I'm just here to present a different concept and a different approach. I think they're all valid, and I think you've got to do what works for you.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate you and the work you do and coming on the podcast and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much for having me. And such good questions. Amazing questions.
Thanks, brother.